100 million. Leave me. At the company's listing celebration banquet, my fiancé, John, publicly embraced his first love and slapped the check on my face. I didn't cry or make a scene. I picked up the check and walked away. He thought I had accepted my fate. And the next day he called to mock me. Without me, you're nothing. On the other end of the line, his assistant screamed in horror. Mr. Wilson, something terrible has happened. The banquet hall for Huaku Biotech's listing celebration was filled with the chandelier refracting thousands of fine, scattered beams of light, each one like an icy knife cutting into my skin. The air was thick with bubbles of expensive champagne and the restrained laughter of successful people. And I, Anna, stood in the shadowy corner, wearing a washed-out, faded lab coat that didn't belong here. Like a ghost who had stumbled in by mistake. I had no time to change clothes. To ensure the flawless data for the roadshow, I had spent 72 straight hours in the lab. It was John who called to urge me, saying the celebration couldn't happen without me. He said, Anna, our good times are here. Come quickly. Everyone is waiting for you. So I came. And then I watched him, my fiancé, John, founder and CEO of Huaku Biotech, standing under the spotlight, the center of attention. He wore a custom-tailored handmade suit, his hair perfectly combed, his handsome face beaming with triumphant confidence. He raised his glass, his voice amplified by the microphone to fill the hall, tinged with just the right amount of excitement and humility. Thank you for the unwavering support from all our investors, and for the hard work of every member of our team. He thanked everyone, the project manager, the marketing director, even his administrative assistant. Every name rang out loud and clear. Only I was missing. Me. The chief scientist who had turned the regeneration factor technology from a concept into reality. Pulling all-nighters for countless nights. Pouring 10 years of my heart into it. In that moment, my heart felt like it was being crushed by an invisible hand. Stopping dead. He went on, his tone suddenly shifting, his gaze turning incredibly tender. But that tenderness wasn't for me. He reached out and pulled a woman in a white evening gown, with a graceful figure, to his side from the crowd. Ivy, his first love. A well-known gallery art director. Camera flashes went wild, framing them both into a perfect picture. Here, what I most want to thank is the light of my life, Ms. Ivy. John's voice was deeply affectionate. It was her who gave me the courage to keep going during my toughest times. She is the only motivation for my struggle. Every achievement of Huaca shines for her. The hall fell silent at first, then erupted into thunderous applause and cheers. I stood there, feeling the blood in my body turn cold inch by inch. The only motivation for his struggle. What about the 10 years we spent eating instant noodles and doing experiments in a leaky basement? What about when I used my parents' retirement money to cover equipment costs to save funds? Where was he then? So, those shared dreams he talked about were just my solo act. Amid the applause, John held Ivy and walked through the crowd toward me. Gone was the tenderness from his face, replaced by a cold, condescending sense of superiority. Ivy nestled against him, her eyes meeting mine with the pity and pride of a victor. The surrounding guests quieted down, all eyes fixed on me, waiting to see how I would break. John stopped in front of me. He pulled a check from his suit's inner pocket, holding it between two fingers with a slow, humiliating gesture. Then, he let go. That flimsy piece of paper, like a withered leaf, spun and landed near my shoe, stained with lab grime. Anna, these 10 years, you've worked hard. His voice was soft but clear to everyone in earshot. This 100 million is your compensation. From now on, we're settled. 100 million. 10 years of youth. 10 years of hard work. In his eyes, are only worth this $1 million. Ivy's lips curled into a smug smile. She mouthed to me. You lost. The entire hall fell deadly silent. Those gazes turned from watching a show to blatant mockery. I could hear their whispers. So she's just an employee. I thought she was the boss wife. $1 million isn't little. If it were me, I'd wake up laughing from my dreams. John was still cherishing old sentiments. This woman really hit the jackpot. I didn't cry. Nor did I make a scene. I didn't even look at John's disgusting face. I just slowly bent down. Everyone thought I was about to burst into tears or humbly pick up that check. But I just extended my fingertip, with an almost elegant posture, and picked up that thin piece of paper. Then, I raised it to my lips and gently blew off the non-existent dust on it. That action plunged the hall into eerie silence once again. I raised my head, my gaze calmly sweeping past John and Ivy, finally resting in John's eyes. I nodded calmly at him. Fine. Just one word. After a pause, I added another sentence, my voice not loud, but each word clear. May you have a happy marriage? After saying that, without any attachment, I turned around and walked toward the banquet hall's door. My back was ramrod straight. Behind me came John's uncontrollable sneer and the guests' relieved discussions. In their eyes, I was just a gold digger dazzled by money. A sensible loser. I walked out of the hotel, the cold evening wind blowing on my face. Lifting my long hair, I looked down at the check in my hand, the long string of zeros looking particularly glaring under the streetlight. I smiled. That smile didn't reach my eyes, but was icy cold. John, do you think this is the end? No. This is the beginning of war. Back to the home I shared with John. That love nest hanging with our photos, filled with models he liked. I just felt nauseous. I had not a shred of attachment. Blocking all contact methods with John was just the first step. I walked into the study, which was also my mini laboratory. I took out a suitcase and started packing. My personal clothes were few. Over these 10 years, almost all my money was invested in research and development. What I wore were always those few comfortable t-shirts and jeans. What I truly treasured were those experimental materials. Piles of notebooks, filled with my dense calculation formulas and experiment ideas. 3 encrypted portable hard drives, storing all the core code and raw data of the regeneration factor from the first to the 4th generation. These were the real lifeline of Huaca Biotech. I carefully placed them into a fireproof and shockproof safe. After packing these, I looked around. On the wall hung various young entrepreneur trophies John had won. In the living room, there was a limited edition sports car model he bought for millions. In the walk-in closet, there were his hundreds of branded suits. Not a single one was bought by me. Oh no. I should say, all were bought with the money earned from the technology one developed. I let out a cold laugh, dragged my suitcase and safe, and closed the door to the place I had lived for 8 years. I didn't look back. Exactly midnight, I sat in the hotel suite I had booked in advance and called my lawyer William Johnson. Will, it can be initiated now. Will's voice on the other end was steady. Ms. Anna, are you sure? Once initiated, this agreement will take effect immediately with no room for reversal. I'm sure. My voice was emotionless. All right. I'll submit the documents to Huaca Biotech's legal department and relevant patent agencies right away. After hanging up, I looked at the city's sparkling lights outside the window. John, you're probably still celebrating your victory with your first love. Enjoy your last few hours of wealth and glory. Early the next morning, the glaring sunlight woke me up. I had the most peaceful sleep in 10 years. My phone was vibrating wildly on the nightstand. It was an unknown number. I answered it without speaking. From the other end came John's voice, hoarse with a hangover, filled with unconcealed smugness and mockery. Anna, don't regret it. I know you're probably hiding in some corner crying right now. I'm telling you, without me, You're nothing. You can't even pay next month's rent. If you know what's good for you, don't come bothering me again. $1 billion is enough for a woman like you to live on for a lifetime. I listened quietly, letting him vent his ridiculous superiority complex. When he finished, I slowly replied, "Is that so?" My voice was unnervingly calm. Then, well, see, just as I was about to hang up, a panicked scream came from the other end. It was his assistant Charlie Taylor's voice. "John. Trouble. John." John roared impatiently. "What's all the fuss about? Can't you see him on the phone?" "John. Our servers. The core code repository in our servers has been wiped clean. Highest privilege access denied." I could hear John's breathing instantly become heavy. "What? Hacked. Get the tech department to restore it immediately. Bunch of idiots." The assistant, voice trembling with tears, said, "It's not a hack, John. It's an urgent notice from the legal department just now. All our company's core technology patents, including all patent rights for the regeneration factor series, as of midnight today, have been fully and legally transferred to." The assistant seemed afraid to say the name, his voice catching in his throat. John yelled into the phone. "Transferred to whose name? Hurry up. Ms. Anna Smith's personal name. Anne. The regeneration factor technology we rely on. The technology licensing agreement we signed with Ms. Anna has also been unilaterally terminated due to certain clauses, John. Were just an empty shell now." Bang, a loud crash. I could clearly hear the sound of John's phone smashing on the ground, shattered to pieces. Immediately after, it was Iva's scream and a flurry of chaotic noise. I hung up the phone expressionlessly, walked to the huge floor-to-ceiling window, pulled back the curtains. A brand new sun was bursting from the horizon, radiant and brilliant. I took a deep breath. The air smelled fresh after the rain. "John, a new war has begun." My phone started ringing frantically. His office landline, his other private numbers. One by one, methodically, I blocked them all. Then, turned it off. The world was finally quiet. It was 3 in the afternoon when John found me. I was sitting in the executive lounge on the top floor of the hotel, leisurely drinking afternoon tea, while discussing my future career plans with a headhunting firm. He looked like an enraged beast, his eyes bloodshot, hair disheveled, suit jacket crumpled on his arm, completely devoid of yesterday's confident demeanor. He must have tracked me down here by checking my credit card spending records. "Anna." He roared my name, charging over and grabbing my wrist. The grip was so tight it almost crushed my bones. The surrounding guests were startled, casting sidelong glances. "Why did you do this? You bitch. Haven't I been good to you? Isn't 100 million enough?" His spittle almost sprayed onto my face. I frowned in disgust and jerked my arm away. Perhaps because he hadn't slept all night and was weak. Or perhaps because he didn't expect me to fight back. I actually managed to break free from his grasp. 5 distinct red marks instantly appeared on my wrist. I raised my eyes, my gaze colder and fiercer than his. 100 million. I sneered, my voice soft but piercing. "John, are you asking if 100 million is enough to buy out 10 years of my youth? Or if it's enough to buy out the life of your huaca biology?" He was choked by my words, frozen in place. From my bag, I slowly pulled out a stack of documents. A copy of that agreement. The papers scattered at his feet, reminiscent of the check he threw at me yesterday. "Open your damn eyes and see clearly." I shed all pretense of gentleness, my voice suddenly rising. "The technology patent final ownership agreement we signed in black and white at the start of the venture. It clearly states that all technologies developed under my leadership at the company, the final ownership of the patents, belongs solely to me, Anna. You handle operations. I handle technology. Until you fully deliver on that 40% of company equity. I only exclusively license the technology to Huaca Biology for use. It's you. To make room for your noble first love, Ivy. So that she can marry you. This self-made business tycoon. In a grand style. You've delayed delivering on my equity before the IPO. It's you who first tore up our agreement. John's face instantly turned pale. He stared fixedly at the documents on the floor. His eyes filled with disbelief. He probably never took this document seriously. Signed back then to placate me and let me focus on RD. In his eyes, I was just his appendage. My talent, my technology, were all rightfully his. Seeing him devastated wasn't enough for me. I slowly raised my hand and took off the black-framed glasses that had been with me for 10 years. These glasses were both a tool for convenience in experiments and a disguise to hide all my sharp edges. I casually placed he glasses on the table, met his shocked gaze, and revealed a cold smile. Do you really think that you, who only knows how to make PPTs and talk big on stage, can't even recite the basic molecular formula of regeneration factor, could have created all this out of thin air? My voice was gentle. Yet every word pierced his heart. John, you were never any business genius. You're nothing but a puppet I pushed to the forefront. The word puppet struck like a sledgehammer, smashing into John's most fragile and proud self-esteem. He staggered back 2 steps. His face turning from white to green, body swaying unsteadily. He looked at me, fear appearing in his eyes for the first time. He probably realized that the woman before him wasn't the Anna he could manipulate or buy off with money anymore. He started to yield. His voice changing tone. Anna. It's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. He tried to grab my hand again, but I dodged it in disgust. I just wanted to give you a surprise after the IPO. I've had that 40% equity ready all along. And that 100 million. It's just pocket money for you. This lie. Even he didn't believe it. Give the technology back to me. Okay. Let's start over. I'll break up with Ivy immediately. I'll give you more money. No. I'll give you half the company. No. 60%. Anna. Please. He began to ramble incoherently. Like a gambler who had lost all his chips. I coldly interrupted him. It's too late. My voice was unervingly calm. From the moment you threw that check at my feet in front of everyone at the victory celebration, Huaca Biotech is dead in my eyes. And you, John, the first said, staring at his bloodless face, enunciating each word, don't even deserve to be buried with it. Huaca Biotech's core technology patents changed hands overnight, reducing the company to an empty shell. The new unicorn is suspected of fraudulent IPO, with founder John deeply mired in scandal. The day after I pulled the rug out from under him, headlines like this flooded the front pages of every financial section. Huaca Biotech's stock price hit limit down at the opening bell. Countless investors wailed online, cursing John as a fraud. The company's main switchboard and PR department phones were overwhelmed with calls. John went completely insane. His first move was to assemble the industry's top legal team, aggressively threatening to sue me for commercial misappropriation and theft of trade secrets. However, when my lawyer, Will, slammed the original, crystal clear, airtight final patent ownership agreement complete with John's own signature in their faces, the opposing team's high-priced lawyers instantly fell silent. The agreement explicitly stated that all patents belonged solely to me, with an additional clause. If John failed to fulfill his equity commitments before the IPO, or engaged in any form of breach or betrayal, I had the unilateral, unconditional right to terminate all technology licenses without any legal liability. The eagerness with which he signed it back then to reassure me was now matched only by his despair. With the legal route blocked, John resorted to his specialty: a smear campaign. He spent a fortune hiring trolls and influencer accounts to viciously slander me online. Scorned lover steals company assets to exact revenge on ex-boyfriend. Exposing the evil woman behind Huaca Biotech. Whole stop at nothing to climb the ladder. Overnight, I was painted as a deranged woman who destroyed everything when love failed. Photoshopped obscene images circulated, fabricating rumors of my chaotic private life. I made no public response to these attacks. Arguing with a madman would only lower my own standards. Instead, through will, I quietly submitted partial evidence to the SEC and major financial media outlets. Not much, just 2 key points. First, Huaca Biotech's IPO prospectus falsely claimed the company fully owned independent intellectual property rights to its core technology. Second, as the sole holder of the core technology patents, I had never transferred patent ownership to the company, meaning John was suspected of fraudulent IPO. That stirred up a hornet's nest instantly. This was no longer a simple business dispute, it had escalated to criminal misconduct. The SEC immediately announced an investigation into Huaca Biotech. The company's stock price began an endless string of limit-down sessions. Shareholders who once idolized John now circled him like sharks scenting blood. An emergency board meeting was called. The atmosphere so thick with tension you could cut it with a knife. John, you owe us an explanation. Why is our core technology in the hands of an outsider? Fraudulent IPO. Do you realize the consequences? Well, I'll go down with you. Immediately. Get those patents back, or you're out on your ear. John was hounded by the board members. Pushed to the brink of collapse, he came to me again. This time, he didn't dare storm my hotel. Instead, he waited humbly outside my building all night. When I stepped out the next morning, I saw him unshaven, eyes bloodshot, looking like a stray dog. Beside him stood 2 people. My parents. My heart sank at the sight of them. My mother's eyes welled up the moment she saw me. She rushed over and grabbed my hand. Anna, how could you be so foolish? John explained everything to you. It's all a misunderstanding. Give the things back to him now. Stop this nonsense. My father glared sternly and said in a low voice, Anna, how did we raise you? Be decent. John has been good to you. How could you do something this destructive to his career? John stood to the side, immediately putting on a look of wounded devotion. Uncle and aunt, it's all my fault. I didn't handle things properly, and I let Anna feel wronged. Anna, listen to me explain. Ivy and I really have nothing going on. It was all for company entertainment. Watching them echo each other, I felt nothing but absurdity and heartbreak. My own parents didn't ask what wrongs ID suffered or how ID fared over the past decade. Their first reaction was to blame me, telling me to consider the big picture. In their eyes, their daughter's dignity and happiness were far less important than a successful son-in-law. I didn't argue with them. I simply took out my phone from my bag and pressed play. John's voice came through clearly. It was from the call he made to me yesterday morning. Without me, you're nothing. You can't even pay next month's rent. 100 million is enough for a woman like you to live on for a lifetime. That contemptuous, mocking tone echoed in the quiet hotel lobby, piercingly sharp. My parents' faces froze instantly, mouths agape, unable to utter a word. John's face, meanwhile, turned ashen in an instant. He probably never dreamed I'd record it. I turned off the recording and stared coldly at him. John, do I need to play the video in front of uncle and aunt? Showing how you threw that 100 million check at my feet during the celebration banquet. He shuddered all over, lips trembling, unable to speak a word. I turned to my parents, my voice devoid of any emotion. Dad. Mom. This is the good son-in-law who treated me well you've been talking about. From today on, I don't want to hear this person's name again. With that, I didn't look at any of them and turned to enter the waiting taxi. As the car started, I saw in the rearview mirror John collapsing to his knees in despair, while my parents stood frozen, helpless and at a loss. I took out my phone and sent John a message. The game has only just begun. Enjoy the consequences you've sown with your own hands. Just as John was being cornered by me, running into walls everywhere and overwhelmed, an unexpected person found me. Victor, founder of Farstar Capital, one of the top investors in the country, and John's biggest rival in business. Rumors said he had a sharp eye and ruthless tactics. A true business titan. He didn't bombard me with calls like John did. Instead, he politely sent a meeting invitation through William. The location was a highly private Chinese-style club. When I arrived, he was already there, dressed in a well-tailored dark gray suit without a tie, exuding a calm yet sharp presence. Seeing me, he stood up and extended his hand. Dr. Anna. Hello. I'm Victor. His palm was warm and firm, his eyes showing no trace of condescension, only equal scrutiny and appreciation. Mr. Green. Hello. We sat down, and a tea master served U.S. top-grade De Hong Pao. He got straight to the point, without any wasted words. Dr. Smith. I've been following you for a long time. I was a bit surprised. He smiled and continued. I started paying attention when Huaku Bio released the first generation of regeneration factor technology. It struck me as odd the foresight and rigor in that technology were completely at odds with John's own flashy, glory-seeking style. It wasn't until the recent news broke that it all clicked. The true soul of Huaku Bio is you. Those words stirred something inside me. For 10 years, everyone only saw John in the spotlight. Only this man saw through the surface to the essence. He slid a document across the table. This is the collaboration plan I've prepared for you. Take a look. I opened the file, and my pupils contracted slightly. Farstar Capital was investing 2 billion RMB to establish a brand new biotech company. I would contribute all my core technology for a 51% stake. I will serve as the chief scientist and co-CEO of the new company, with veto power over all decisions, especially those related to R&D. The terms offered in this contract are astonishingly generous. More importantly, it represents absolute respect and trust in me. John took 10 years but still refused to honor that 40% equity stake. Yet Victor, a stranger I had only met once, was willing to hand over absolute control of the company directly. I closed the file, looked up at him, and asked, "Why me?" Victor picked up his teacup, took a light sip, and gazed at me intently. Because genius deserves the best price, and because I want to see what kind of brilliance a great technology can unleash in the hands of someone who truly understands it, not in the hands of a speculator using it as a tool for seeking fame and reputation. His words struck a chord with me. I didn't hesitate any longer. I agree. Right then and there, under the lawyer's witness, we signed the cooperation agreement. For the new company, I named it Phoenix Biology, symbolizing rebirth from ashes. Victor's execution ability was astounding. Right after the signing ceremony, he immediately arranged a press conference in the afternoon when Huaku Biology's stock hit its 7th consecutive limit down. At the press event, media outlets gathered, and camera flashes lit up the room like daylight. For the first time, I officially stepped into the spotlight as Anna, chief scientist and co-CEO of Phoenix Biology. I shed my lab coat and black-framed glasses, changing into a sleek white pantsuit prepared by Victor's team, with polished, powerful makeup. The moment I walked onto the stage, I could see undisguised awe and confusion in the reporters' eyes. They probably struggled to connect the cool, confident woman before them with the crazy, jealous woman smeared in the news just days before. Standing behind the podium, I wasted no time and dropped a bombshell. Phoenix Biology will officially launch the upgraded regenerative factor 2.0 technology globally within 3 months. This technology will achieve over 5 times the efficiency in cell repair and regeneration compared to all current market competitors, including Huaca Biology's regenerative facto R10. At the same time, production costs will be reduced by 70%. As soon as I said this, the room erupted in chaos. All the reporters went wild, flooding me with questions like a tidal wave. A 5-fold performance boost and a 70% cost reduction. This news was no less than a direct death sentence for Huaca Biology. Watching the flashing lights below, I knew that from this moment on, the balance of offense and defense had completely reversed. John, your good days are over. The effect of the press conference was immediate. The next day, Huaca Biology's stock hit limit down again after opening. Unsurprisingly, this time, however, no one held any illusions about it. John was driven completely into a corner. He thought I had only taken away a few patent files. Naively, he believed that as long as the RD team remained, he could force them to replicate my technology, at least barely keeping the company afloat. So, he gathered all the RD department employees, offered triple wages, and demanded they copy the regenerative factor technology in the shortest time possible. This news came from my senior brother, Leo, head of Huaca Biology's RD department, who secretly informed me. When his call came, I was in Phoenix Biology's new office, discussing lab renovation plans with Victor. Leo's voice on the phone was filled with anger and helplessness. Anna, John, that idiot, has gone mad. Does he think scientific research is like buying cabbage at a market? Just say copy and it's done. Without your original data and algorithm models, we can't even figure out the most basic culture-medium ratios. He's been yelling in the department every day, calling us useless and saying we're paid to do nothing. The guys are going crazy from his pressure. I listened quietly. An amateur leading professionals. This is the fatal flaw of speculators like John. He will never understand how many years of accumulation and countless trials and errors lie behind a cutting-edge technology. He only sees the results but never respects the process. I spoke only one sentence into the phone. Senior, I have a brand new research project here. A new lab. A whole new future. Do you want to join me in doing something truly great? Silence lingered on the other end for a full half-minute. Then Leo's voice returned, thick with barely contained excitement and resolve. Yes, Junior. Tell us what to do. It's simple, I said. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. Bring every trusted colleague to the Phoenix Biotech building. I'll be waiting. The next day, the most dramatic scene in Huaca Biotech's history unfolded at its headquarters. At exactly 9 a.m., led by RD Director Leo, the entire core RD team, 37 members, simultaneously submitted resignation letters to HR. They packed their personal belongings and walked out of the building where they'd labored for years without a backward glance. The HR manager was stunned, rushing to the CEO's top floor office and forgetting to knock. Mr. John. Disaster. The RD department. The whole RD team has resigned. Reportedly, John froze for a full minute upon hearing the news. Then, like a madman, he smashed everything breakable in his office. Precious antique vases, his treasured sports car models, the massive floor-to-ceiling windows. The CEO's suite was left in ruins. He finally understood. I hadn't just taken the technical patents. I had taken Huaca Biotech's roots, its soul, its heart. Without its technology and all its core RD talent, Huaca couldn't even maintain updates for existing products. It had become utterly worthless. Meanwhile, before Phoenix Biotech's gleaming new building, I looked at Leo and the 30-plus familiar faces behind him, their eyes alight with trust and anticipation. Dr. Anna, they called out excitedly upon seeing me. We can finally work properly under your leadership. Warmth surged through me as I met their gazes. This was my true team. I gave a firm nod. Welcome home. Watching John's empire crumble and her dream of becoming a wealthy socialite evaporate, Ivy finally panicked. She launched a series of frantic, foolish counterattacks. First, she posted a tearful, lengthy essay on social media, painting herself as an innocent, kind-hearted victim burdened by love. She claimed she and John were truly in love, but faced vicious revenge from me, the scheming ex. She blamed all John's failures on my malice and jealousy. The heartfelt writing, paired with her tear-streaked selfies, successfully garnered sympathy from many uninformed netizens. The hashtag #HeartbrokenForIvy briefly trended, boosted by her hired trolls. She even photoshopped images of me intimately entering hotels with various men, spreading rumors about my chaotic private life to attack my character. I couldn't even be bothered to respond to these clownish antics myself. Victor's PR team was far from incompetent. Without consulting me, they launched the swiftest, most effective counterattack. They didn't engage the trolls or debunk the crude photoshops. Instead, they directly contacted the most authoritative art media outlet and dropped irrefutable evidence. Ivy's award-winning college painting First Snow, which earned her a national gold medal, was actually plagiarized from a deceased classmate's work. The scandal instantly reversed public opinion. For an art director who rose to power by plagiarizing others' work, is there any credibility in what she says? Ivy's genius image shattered completely. She went from being a pitted first love to an art thief that everyone condemns in an instant. The gallery she worked for quickly distanced itself by issuing a statement and firing her. The trust fund kids and celebrities who once adored her now avoided her at all costs. Ivy was utterly disgraced. Driven to desperation, she resorted to the most reckless act: industrial espionage. She probably thought that since I could use technology to crush John, she could do the same to steal my new technology and stage a dramatic comeback. She paid off a newly hired janitor at my company to sneak into my office late at night and copy data from my computer. All of this was within the expectations of Victor and me. Phoenix Biotech's security system was designed by a world-class team hired by Victor. Not even a janitor could slip an unnoticed we'd know if a fly entered. I played along with her scheme. On my work computer, I deliberately placed an encrypted fake file with a highly tempting name. Regeneration Factor 2. Zero-core algorithm final version. But in reality, it contained nothing but meaningless gibberish and a tracking program that would trigger an alarm immediately upon being copied. On the night of their planned exchange, the bribed janitor sneaked into my office and inserted a USB drive into my computer. He had no idea that his every move was being live-streamed via hidden cameras to Victor, me, and the police. When he and Ivy met in the underground garage, exchanging cash for the USB drive, I arrived with the police and a swarm of reporters drawn by the news. Camera flashes lit up frantically, illuminating Ivy's terrified, twisted, despair-filled face with perfect clarity. Caught red-handed, the charge of industrial espionage was enough to land her in prison for years. As the police handcuffed and led her away, she acted like a madwoman, screaming John's name. "John, save me. You made me do this. Save me." The next day, John, to save himself, immediately issued a cold statement through his virtually defunct company. It declared that all of Ivy's actions were her own doing, unrelated to the company or John himself. Mr. Wilson claimed he knew nothing about her deeds and expressed strong condemnation. Every man for himself when disaster strikes. How ironic. This was the true love Ivy had bet everything on. Watching the news footage of Ivy being hauled into a police car in disgrace, I felt no satisfaction, only indifference. Foolish people always pay the price for their folly. The delisting and liquidation process for Waka Biotech moved faster than expected. Due to fraudulent listing, the company faced astronomical fines from the Securities Commission and massive compensation for investors' losses. All of John's assets, including properties and luxury cars, were frozen and auctioned off by the court. Even then, it wasn't enough to cover the debts. Overnight, he went from a billionaire rising star to a debt-ridden pauper. He started drinking heavily every day, hiding in a cheap rental unit, too ashamed to show his face. Rumor had it that he kept looking at old photos of us, muttering my name over and over, filled with regret. Finally, on a stormy, lightning-filled night, he broke down, soaked to the bone, like a drowned ghost. He appeared outside my new apartment building, kneeling in the icy rain. He tilted his head back and shouted my name again and again. Anna. Anna. I was wrong. I was truly wrong. Come back to me, please. I beg you. I can't live without you. I don't want the company anymore. I don't want the money. I don't want anything. I just want you. His cries were as heart-wrenching as a cuckoo's lament. Standing at the 23rd floor window in my soft silk robe, holding a warm cup of milk, I coldly watched the small, pitiful figure below. Victor approached from behind and gently draped a warm cashmere cardigan over my shoulders. Victor didn't ask me anything, just stood quietly by my side, providing me with the strongest silent support. Downstairs, John's cries grew louder, attracting the security guards of the community. He struggled like a madman, refusing to leave, still shouting loudly about the days we endured hardship together. Anna, have you forgotten? The days we shared instant noodles and split a sandwich. Have you forgotten that you said you'd build a tech empire with me? Our dream. Have you forgotten it all? I watched his clumsy performance expressionlessly, finding it ridiculous. Dream. His dream was to step on my shoulders to welcome his first love. I took out my phone. Didn't answer his call, nor did I go down to see him. I just sent him one last message. John, stop acting. What you miss has never been me as a person. What you miss is that tool who could selflessly sacrifice for you, let you step on her shoulders to succeed, and satisfy all your vanity. Unfortunately, that tool has upgraded autonomously and permanently blocked you. This inferior user. After sending this message, I drew the curtains, shutting out all the noise outside. I said to Victor beside me, let the security handle it. I don't want to see him anymore. Victor nodded and made a call. Soon, the cries downstairs disappeared. I knew that John's self-directed melodramatic reunion attempt ended hastily without even a decent audience. And I couldn't even be bothered to scatter his ashes. 3 months later, the global launch event for Phoenix Biotech's Regeneration Factor 2.0 was grandly held at the National Convention Center. The venue was packed, with top global tech media, capital giants, and representatives from medical institutions gathered together. The day before the event, I made a decision. I had my assistant send an invitation to John, the most prestigious VIP seat, center front row. Victor seemed puzzled. Why do you still want to see him? I smiled. I want him to witness firsthand what he lost. I want him to personally crown my glory. On the day of the event, John really came. He wore an ill-fitting cheap suit, his hair graying, his eyes cloudy, out of place among the well-dressed elites around him. He was like a down-and-out actor who wandered onto the wrong set, sitting there awkwardly, distraught. When the event began, I walked confidently onto the stage in a custom-tailored red gown. With all the spotlights shining on me, I saw John. He looked up, staring at me blankly. In his eyes were shock, regret, and unspeakable pain. I ignored him. I presented the epoch-making significance of Regeneration Factor 2.0 to the world in the most professional and clear language. When the clinical trial data for the new technology was shown on the big screen, repair efficiency 10 times that of the previous generation, with no side effects, and cost only 1/10, the audience erupted in prolonged applause. Everyone knew that a new era had arrived. And Huaca Biotech, with its pitiful 1 Zero technology had been completely swept into the dustbin of history. At the end of the event, all procedures were finished. I didn't leave the stage immediately. I walked back to the center, and the spotlight followed me again. I picked up the microphone and said with a smile, "Here, at Phoenix Biotech's most glorious moment, I want to specially thank one person." The entire room quieted down, looking at me curiously. All media lenses were focused on me. The person I want to thank is the former CEO of Huaca Biotech, Mr. John. As soon as that name was spoken, the room erupted in an uproar. All eyes turned in unison, like searchlights, beaming toward John seated in the front row. He looked up blankly, like a struggling student publicly named and shamed, utterly bewildered. I watched him, the smile on my face broadening. I want to thank him for that $1 billion breakup fee he generously gifted me at the Huaca listing celebration banquet back in the day. That money became the very first angel investment for Phoenix Biology. Without that crucial startup capital, Phoenix Biology might not have launched so swiftly. And Reagan Factor 2.0 wouldn't be unveiled to you all so soon. So, John, the first raised my microphone toward him from a distance, as if toasting, "Thank you for your support." The moment my words ended, the hall plunged into dead silence before erupting into an avalanche of laughter and applause. Everyone grasped the extreme sarcasm in that Thanksgiving was the most magnificent, yet cruel, public execution. I returned his initial humiliation with 100-fold, 1,000-fold intensity. Under the collective gaze of mockery, disdain, and pity, John's face flushed crimson. He coughed violently, his body swaying as he pointed a trembling finger at me, lips quivering but no words emerging. Finally, unable to withstand the overwhelming shame and blow, he spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed straight backward. Chaos erupted. Standing high on the stage, I watched coldly as medical staff carried him away on a stretcher. My heart remained unshaken. Revenge was mine. After the press conference, John was rushed to the hospital. But instead of warm condolences, icy court summons awaited him, charged with multiple crimes including fraudulent listing, falsifying financial reports, and maliciously draining company assets. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison and an unimaginably massive fine. His life drew to a disgraceful close, and Ivy, convicted of commercial espionage and past plagiarism, was sentenced to 3 years in prison. This once golden couple who dazzled in the world of fame and fortune finally reunited behind bars. They vanished entirely from high society, becoming nothing more than a joke and gossip topic in casual conversations. Phoenix Biology, meanwhile, saw its valuation soar after the press conference, successfully listing on NASDAQ. On the bell-ringing day, I wore the same red gown from the conference, standing in the NYSE trading hall, personally striking the bell that symbolized wealth and glory. Victor stood beside me, his eyes brimming with undisguised admiration and pride. Amid countless camera flashes and cheers, we shared a knowing smile. My new office, perched on the top floor of the city's most elite skyscraper, offers a 360-degree panoramic city view. I had that $1 billion check framed in the priciest walnut wood and hung it directly opposite my desk. Beside it is a group photo from Phoenix Biology's listing bell ringing, featuring Victor, me, and our entire team. Every visitor to my office sees this peculiar decoration. It constantly reminds me, never, ever dim your light for anyone or anything unworthy. And it reassures me that all humiliation and harm, if you're strong enough, will transform into the most dazzling metals on your path to success. 3 years later, Phoenix Biology reigns as the undisputed global leader in biotechnology. As the founder, I graced the cover of Time magazine, hailed as the woman revolutionizing the future of life science. Victor, by my side, has long evolved from an initial partner into a loving companion walking shoulder to shoulder He cherishes every part of me ambition, my edge, even my occasional vulnerability. Our bond is built on true equality, respect, and soul-deep resonance. One day, during an interview with a top domestic financial channel, the studio lights shone brightly. The host, an intellectual and poised woman, posed a question on everyone's mind. Ms. Anna, we all know your legendary entrepreneurial story. Many wonder how you overcame past hurt and betrayal. Do you still hate that person today? Facing the camera, I smiled serenely. First, that wasn't betrayal, it was a precise screening. My voice was broadcast through the radio waves, reaching thousands of households. It helped me eliminate the wrong, inferior options in my life in a way that, though intense, was the most efficient, allowing me to move faster and with less burden toward the only right path. As for hate, I shook my head with a smile of genuine relief. My time and energy are precious. I need to use them to create value and change the world, not waste them on meaningless emotional consumption. For a garbage file that's already been cleared from memory, why should I remember it? At this moment, in some greasy, noisy corner of the city, in a 24-hour cheap fast food restaurant, a man in dirty work clothes, with a hunched figure, was struggling to carry a tray full of plates, moving among the tables and chairs. He was John Wilson, released early from prison, because he behaved well in prison. He got a reduced sentence, but after he got out, he found that the outside world had long since moved on without him. He couldn't find any decent job, and could only do the hardest and dirtiest work in such places, earning a meager salary. On the wall of the fast food restaurant hung an old TV. On it was playing my interview. John, carrying the tray, suddenly stopped in his tracks. He looked up blankly, staring at the radiant, confident, and composed woman on the TV screen. So familiar, yet so strange. He had aged a lot. His once handsome face covered in wrinkles, his eyes clouded and filled with regret, resentment, and deep despair. On TV, I was confident, beautiful, and powerful. The world around me was a height he could no longer reach, a cloud he couldn't even imagine. What exactly had he pushed away with his own handsome woman? Or an era? Crash! The tray in his hand slipped heavily to the ground. Soup, leftovers, and grease splattered everywhere. John, are you dead or what? Are you blind? Clean it up quickly. Don't you want your salary this month? Came the sharp curses from the restaurant owner. But John seemed not to hear, showing no reaction. He just stared obsessively, fixedly, at me on the screen. 2 lines of murky tears silently slid down his deeply furrowed face. 2 more years passed. Victor Green and I were in Europe negotiating a major cross-border acquisition. After the signing ceremony, we had a rare half-day free, so we walked hand in hand, strolling through the streets of a foreign land. The afternoon sun was warm and gentle, shining on the ancient cobblestone roads, everything as beautiful as an oil painting. Just as we passed a deep alley, my gaze inadvertently caught a familiar yet strange figure. The figure was hunched over, rummaging through a foul-smelling trash can with difficulty. It was John. He was even more destitute and aged than when I saw him on TV last time, dressed in ragged clothes, with long, greasy hair, his face covered in grime, barely recognizable. I didn't know why he had ended up here, perhaps hiding from debt, or something else, but it was no longer my concern. Just as I was about to look away, he seemed to sense something and suddenly looked up. Our gazes briefly met in the air. He saw me, saw the expensive custom-made clothes I was wearing, saw the handsome and elegant Victor beside me, saw the pair of matching rings on our fingers that sparkled in the sunlight. His first reaction wasn't to rush up and confront, nor anger or sorrow, but terror, a terror that came from the bones, an inferiority pushed to the extreme. He seemed to see the most terrifying thing in the world and, in a panic, shrank his entire body into the deeper shadows of the alley. As if, as long as he hid, I wouldn't see his embarrassment. Victor followed my gaze and also saw that pitiful figure. He subtly tightened his grip on my hand and asked softly, "Need to handle it?" He meant whether we should have the bodyguards escort him away. I shook my head, linking arms with him. A radiant smile bloomed on my face again. "No need." My voice was gentle and calm. "Just an irrelevant stranger. That's all." After saying that, we continued walking forward, unhurriedly, without stopping. Just like that, we passed by the shadowy alley where he was hiding. The sunlight shone on me again. Warm. Very warm. As for the person hiding in the shadows, there were no longer any ripples in my heart. No love. No hatred. Not even pity. As if he really was just a background prop I happened to pass by on my life's journey. His life. His suffering. His regrets, they were merely a trivial, already turned page footnote at the beginning of my brilliant, glorious life. That's all.